So you walk down the street and you get stared at a lot and you're wondering what it is and you're thinking, oh, maybe it's the fact that I do my hair very differently than what is considered normal standards today. Maybe it's your clothing. People are like, oh, what are they wearing? That doesn't look like regular clothing. Or maybe even your makeup, and it just might look off to some people, so you get a couple looks. Are you a punk or are you wearing historical dress? Today, I want to dive into a little bit of brain rot that I've had going on. I watched the Spider-Man movie, Across the Spider-Verse, and Hobie Brown, or Spider-Punk, appears in it, and I really liked the art style. The whole movie was just gorgeous, let's be real. But I immediately was talking with my siblings on the phone after, and I was talking about how cool it is and all that, and like Spider-Punk was so cool. And then they started to like make fun of me for, being a wannabe punk back in the day, which I was totally. Then they were making fun of like, oh yeah, punk sensibilities and what is even a punk and all that. And I was thinking about it. And then I was thinking about what I do nowadays. And I realized that there is a lot of crossover, specifically in the fashion side of the punk way of dressing and the punk way of thinking about clothing and expression, and the historical fashion community. And then I also was watching a video by Morgan Donner, and she has a video where she makes these goth punk pants, except she makes Victorian split skirt with it. And it's really cool. Go watch the video. I'll link it somewhere. But I really wanted to get into where I think the similarities lie and just a little bit of research into each side of it, because otherwise I'm getting nothing done this week. So let's dive right in. First things first is the discussion of what punk is. I'm gonna roughly define punk just for the purposes of this video, but what I've gathered in my research and also my limited experience in the punk community is that part of punk culture is defiance and not wanting to fit labels and definitions, and being a standard punk is actually the opposite of what punk is. It's about individualism. Keep that in mind as we move forward, though I may be using punk as a generalization. It is so complex, and I can't even scratch the surface here. So the origins of the word punk, it's actually been used for hundreds of years, and I won't trace it back that far, because it can be used as slang in a lot of areas, but it also can be used as a noun for incense or rotten wood that's used as tinder, and it can still be used today as that definition. But the word punk has been used since the mid-19th century, or the 1800s, as an adjective. This is kind of where the use of punk for punk rock comes from. In the mid-1800s, it was used as an adjective for a worthless person, a criminal's apprentice, and then also, even later in the century and into the early 1900s, it could be used for harlots or homosexuals. And that also ties into the fact that the punk community is deeply interlaced with the queer community as well. Then by the 1920s and 30s, it was being used to describe a young, inexperienced person. And also it was used and kind of can be used as a verb for backing out of something, like you're punked out. So the term punk rock comes from that history of language. The actual terminology, the combination of those two words, punk rock, is attributed to Dave Marsh, who worked as an editor at Cream. And it first appeared in a 1971 article in the May edition of his Looney Tunes, his Looney Tunes article run that he had. And it was really cool looking into it. 10 out of 10 recommend. He bestowed the term punk rock in this article and the Mysterians. from there, it took off. It was the name of the movement. And this was in 1971. By 1975, a lot of bands were claiming themselves as punk rock, as well as a lot of the followers. Nowadays, punk has developed many subgenres within the culture, including hardcore punk, pop punk, psychobilly punk, anarcho-punk, and a dozen others. I mean, everybody has a little punk niche for them. And so now I'm proposing COSPUNK, I guess. Yeah, COSPUNK. COSPUNK. I like that. If it's not taken, I'm claiming it now. So since punk defies definition, as we discussed earlier, it's no surprise that it's split into many little micro subcultures whose one rule is that there are no rules and individualism is key. Quote from punk rock singer Patti Smith, who said, "Punk rock is just another word for freedom." So now that we've got an idea of where punk comes from and what punk might be, it's time to dive into some of the clothing styles, because that's really the focus of this video. I know that a lot of punk is focused on music and political beliefs, but this video we're just focusing on clothing and the ideals of punk fashion. So going back to the 70s, the origins of it, we can see some of the mainstays of punk styling in the bands that helped establish the culture. So Richard Hell of the band Television, he was one of the first performers to rock spiked hair and a torn shirt held together with safety pins on stage. And the Ramones are often credited with popularizing the ripped jeans look as an aesthetic instead of just a thing that happens to people. They had no money, Jenny Lenz recalls. The holes in Joey's knees were from wear and tear, not fashion. I have photos of Dee Dee Ramone wearing a leather jacket, and around the wrists it's really frayed. It was shameful back then to run around with holes in your jeans, and the Ramones said, "Fuck that, that's who we are." London punks like X-Ray Specs, fronted by Polystyrene, seized upon the movement's DIY philosophy and started using staple items like jeans and leather jackets as blank canvases to decorate with pins, paint, and spikes, bleached jeans, and colored hair for everyone. So you can see how punk fashion has not only lived through the years, but has also inspired other musical genre styles, like the jeans and t-shirt uniform of the indie rock bands, and the complexly decorated jackets of rap stars in the 90s. I'm gonna end this little rant right here about punk clothes with another quote from Jenny Lenz, the photographer. She said, "We would take what we would see in fashion and make it our own, where other people would take what's in fashion and just run with it. We influenced fashion more than the other way around." Now we've discussed the punk side of things, it's time to get into the historical fashion community. What is historical fashion, historical costuming? What do I mean when I say that? First things first, the word vintage needs to be discussed. While vintage is an acceptable term when discussing older clothing and styles, it's generally accepted that vintage refers to things between 20 and 100 years ago. So as of now, that only covers from the 1920s to the early 2000s. So I will not be using the word vintage really in this video because I don't think it covers enough. I will instead be using the terms historical fashion or historical dress or historical costuming because I find it less limited by time. I could literally mean anything in the past. The study of historical costumes has had a recent surge of popularity, especially on the internet, surrounding historically set media and everyone's opinions about said media. Yes, I am talking about period dramas and videos about period dramas that have led to a boom in interest. It is possible to have professional opinions about the subject of historical dress, and that is a degree that you can actually get. NYU has been having that degree plan since 1979. And I think that it's a really good thing that a spotlight is being shown on historical dress, as it can reveal knowledge previously unknown about culture, traditions, artisans, and everyday human life. I would specifically like to focus on a corner of the internet known as Costume, or the Costuming YouTube. This is a community of historians, designers, seamstresses, craftspersons, and generally chaotic and lovely people with a passion for clothing and history. The way that historical clothing works into this is through the community, really, and through each person within it. So an interesting aspect of this community, which I would love to consider myself as a part of, is that our research, our projects, and our skills often bleed into daily life and in turn influence our lives and create a subculture. Some of the leading content creators for this movement include, but definitely are not limited to, so go explore these people and explore more. All of it. Go. These people are Carolina Zabrowska, Bernadette Banner, Mina Lay, Abby Cox, Nicole Rudolph, Cheney McKnight, Morgan Donner. That's just some of them. Most of these creators, they often wear historical clothing in some way in their daily lives, sometimes going as far as to submerge themselves entirely in historical dress, head to toe, entirely. And this has led to some amazing mismatching of different periods, as well as the mixing of modern and historical dress. And so far as where you find these items, the historical fashion community greatly encourages the making, mending, and repurposing of your own clothing as a fun DIY and a way to stop the onslaughts of fast fashion. And if you can't or don't want to make your own, there are numerous small businesses and online options for commissioning custom work that could be right for you. Individualism is a huge part of the community, from finding the periods that you like best in history to making things truly your own, regardless of historical accuracy. Live your Ren Fair dreams. Though there are those who gatekeep and promote ideals that can be problematic. Looking at you, born in the wrong generation, folks. Those behaviors are often discouraged by most, and everyone is encouraged to come and participate. As someone who is part of this, I definitely encourage others to dip their toes into the world of historical dress. I think it's a wonderful hobby, interest, and whatever it needs to be for you. Diving into punk and historical fashion, we have a lovely little Venn diagram that I've made up here. Let's get into it.
I had some time on my hands the other night, so I decided to make this into a fun little digital drawing thing. On one side we have punk, and on the other we have historical, and in the center we will have our commonalities to create COSPUNK. The first commonality is that these are both different subcultures with subgenres within them, creating many different communities within a community. Next is individualism. Both of these, punk and historical, value the individual, encourage self-expression. The next item up on the list is gatekeeping, and the fact that we really shouldn't do it, and gatekeepers are often looked down upon and discouraged within the communities. After gatekeeping, we have the DIY element of each community. Both of these communities encourage the creation of your own clothing and the creation of different accessories that are considered a staple item, such as battle jackets or petticoats. Anti-fast fashion is a big part of both of these. Punk is usually on the anti-capitalist side, so that goes against the fast fashion industry, and the historical fashion industry supports the workers' rights side of the argument and also the planet-friendly. Non-traditional dress and beauty. As I mentioned in the intro to this video, not everyone might find these subgenres a beautiful thing to look at, but within each community, it is beautiful, no matter what that may be to the outside world. Kind of going hand in hand with the DIY and anti-fast fashion movements, the mending and recycling of clothing is also highly valued within each community. And of course, in the modern era, the online community is very important, as it is how you can find people that might not be in your area and can introduce you to a lot more wide ideas. And within introductions of wide ideas, the sharing of knowledge of different music so far as punk goes, different sewing methods so far as historical goes, and everything you can think of that can be shared between human beings for a common interest.
Right, now that we've seen that Venn diagram, I have proven my point. My brain rot has been splattered all over the internet for whoever wants to see it. I hope you guys liked this video. I'm Art by LGO on Instagram, TikTok, Patreon, everything basically. I'm on it. If you want to support my channel, I would really appreciate it. Give a like, a subscribe, a comment, anything you feel like leaving. And let me know what subcultures you're a part of that you think cross over in really weird ways. So, like, if you're, I don't know, if you're a cottagecore goth, let me know. Let me know how that works out for you. I'd love to see it. But yeah, have a lovely day. I hope you guys liked this video. I know it was a little different from my usual stuff.